So far, I've managed to beat every single campaign in Warcraft 3 with only workers. And I've seen some things that I will never be able to unsee, and did some things I will never be able to undo. But nothing, and I mean nothing, has prepared me for the horrors that are about to come. Cue up the Soviet music. Hi, I'm Amon, and welcome to the finale of the Workers Only series. Welcome to the Scourge campaign. Welcome to hell. The rules are the same as before. I can only build workers, and anything that isn't a worker gets thrown into the meat grinder right away. And I have to play on the hardest difficulty. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, let hell on earth begin.
Before this relentless, eternal hunger.
In the Undead campaign, I used Ghouls in the missions where they don't give me any Acolytes, since they are technically workers. But only technically. Mission 1 was such an example in that campaign, and Mission 1 is such an example in this campaign. The only difference being that Mission 1 in the Undead campaign is one of the easiest in the entire game, and this one is one of the hardest, and by a large margin. But now I have Ghouls, which are an actual combat unit. How bad can it be? You start off in 3 lanes, and each has enemies that want to get past me. Arthas can train abominations, and this lane gets hit the hardest. Kel'Thuzad can train necromancers, and Sylvanas can train banshees. And alongside those units, they can all also train ghouls. So all the powerful units that they train have to be replaced by ghouls. Surprisingly enough though, I was able to max out on ghouls in the initial minutes without too many issues. But then the issues started to arise. The way this level works is that each lane has 3 bases, and only the one closest to the end is active. The others are actually asleep and waiting for the others to be destroyed. And each base has a slightly different composition. The problem of my run was the one in the top. This one featured a strong attack wave led by a Dark Knight who deals chaos damage and who has a bouncing heal which forces me to focus him down first every single time in order to actually take that wave down. My supply cap only allows me to build 15 ghouls, but thankfully those are actually enough, but only barely. And the only reason for that is the Cannibalize ability. This ability gives me a bunch of health from nearby corpses, so every time I was low on health, I used it to keep myself safe, because despite having infinite resources on this level, it takes 20 seconds to build a ghoul and I only have 1 production building. So if I lose too many ghouls, I lose the mission. And all this microing required the bulk of my attention to be on this lane. But there are also 2 others as well. Thankfully, the lower right one is the easiest one, because the game knows it features a low-leveled Sylvanas, so I was actually able to hold this lane pretty easily. And then we come to Arthas. He can actually build 20 ghouls, and he doesn't get hit insanely hard, so I will be able to break out of this lane first. Once you attack a building in the base, the enemy paladin will teleport down there to ruin your day. As if my life wasn't hard enough as it is. Thankfully, you can bait the teleport by attacking a building and then running away, so the paladin will make a walk of shame home, and I will have enough time to take the base out. Only the 3 farms need to die in each base, and this is very fortunate because some of these bases have a bunch of defenders and buildings. After this base was down, there was a huge base with a bunch of defenders and towers next. This base was so strong that I needed multiple attempts to take it down, but eventually I did. And the last base was also quite large with a bunch of defenders, but for some reason these guys don't actually deal that much damage. So I managed to take it out in 1 sweep. 1 lane down. My next challenge was to try to bring my forces from this lane to another one, since I had a bunch of extra ghouls now. The problem is that if I even try to think about going through the middle, I will be greeted by a whole bunch of pain. And the problem is that the lanes seem to be divided by trees, which I can cut down. But there are a bunch of stones in the middle of these trees, and I can't move past them. Well, I can't move past them in any location except this one. There is a tiny hole in the fence here, where I can actually take down a couple of trees and get to the other side. And then I was able to take down the base that was on the other side. And now I combined the ghouls from both my lanes, and I was able to easily take down the remaining 2 bases. That's 2 lanes down, but there was still 1 lane left. And not only that, but I actually had another objective, to destroy the 3 altars in the middle. So I had to enter the death trap eventually. Might as well do it now, right? So I gathered a bunch of my ghouls in one place, and I took a couple of them to the other side to distract the defenders, while the others moved in to destroy the altars. This was painful and took several attempts, but I did it. Next, I made a bunch more ghouls, and I marched to the top base. It was a bloodbath, but a lot of them managed to survive, and we managed to destroy that base. And on my next attempt, I got a bunch more, and I destroyed another base as well. Now only 1 more left. So I gathered all my units from all 3 lanes, and I assaulted the last base. And despite all odds, I actually managed to beat one of the hardest missions in the entire game with only ghouls. I cannot overstate how difficult all this was, with the amount of babysitting I constantly had to do in the top. Literally every attack wave, which comes every 30 seconds or so, I had to manually tell the ghouls to attack that knight. And I also had to tell the wounded ghouls to cannibalize. And that was only 1 lane. I had 3 of them. This was just insane. I'm already losing my will to live, and it's only mission 1. Okay, first of all, mission 2 is a no-build mission, and that one does feature 3 ghouls in total, which I can play with. And I'm pretty good at this game, but I'm not so good that I will be able to beat this whole mission with only them. So we are skipping this one. But next up is that Sylvanas mission where you have to possess the enemy leaders. Well, you usually do. This level is problematic because of multiple things. The most important of which is money. I was able to establish a base with solid defenses surrounded by a bunch of buildings to mess with the enemy AI. And this was very necessary because the enemy attacks me with huge attack waves. Since the initial mine had some miserable money inside it, I had to expand quickly. My only real option was the expansion guarded by the gnolls left of my base. The problem was that these gnolls were led by Snarlmane Jr. He wanted to avenge his father from the Alliance campaign, so he's gonna attack me with everything he has. And honestly, I didn't stand a chance. And since he's on rocky terrain, I can't build towers next to him either. And since I can't even expand, let alone try to destroy the huge enemy bases, I had to bring a different kind of worker on board. My ghouls saved me on the first mission, so I will let them try to do the same on this one. But if you thought the first mission was hell, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. I once again made a nice tower line surrounded by buildings, and then I made a bunch of ghouls and I took down Snarlmane Jr. Your level 11 father would be ashamed of you, son. And then I massed a bunch of ghouls and I attacked the purple base in the bottom, because I would have less pressure on me and I would have another gold mine. Yeah, about that. I thought that since I would be able to use an honest-to-god actual combat unit instead of acolytes, that it would be pretty easy to take this base down. I was wrong. This base is insanely strong, and I got pounded by the trillion towers inside of it. And I don't nearly have enough money to burn on trying to destroy this whole base, which wasn't even the objective. And my only other source of cash can be the gold mine in the middle of the map inside a bandit camp. But since money is going to be such a problem, I had to restart again and try to win as soon as possible without wasting any money. So in the beginning I sold off all buildings that I don't need, and I made a little kill box with towers next to my citadel, and I surrounded it with buildings. Next I took out Snarlmane Jr. again, and I massed a bunch of ghouls and attacked the bandit camp in the middle. Now I have another gold mine. And since I knew I was going to need every single piece of gold that this map has, I decided to stick with 50 supply until I was able to mine out the last gold mine. And for the foreseeable future, I was on defense mode. I even utilized the fake base trick where I built a town hall somewhere on the map, and then the attack wave came, they destroyed it, and a lot of the times that would satisfy them enough to return to base after a job well done. So I did that a couple of times. The red enemy basically skipped 3 attack waves that way. And once I mined everything, I made 50 ghouls and I placed them right outside of the main enemy base. I waited for the attack wave to come out and I went in. I thought this would be pretty easy considering they only have their defenders inside. I was wrong. Even those defenders, which consist of literally only abominations and necromancers, were enough to stop my 100 supply worth of ghouls. I can take out a bunch of them, but the enemy has a bunch of structures, so they easily replace the lost defenders quickly. And of course, these structures get rebuilt and repaired if I even think about touching them. Honestly, I was very close to giving up at this point. This was all just too much for me. But during some of my testing, I found something very interesting. I have to destroy all enemy production structures, but if I destroy some of them and they start getting rebuilt, they don't count as actual production buildings until they are actually built. So I decided to go for one last desperate attempt. I massed my 50 ghouls, and instead of targeting the defenders, I decided to completely ignore them and attack the buildings instead. And honestly, that worked a lot better than it had any right to go. I destroyed all but 2 buildings in my first attempt. So I reloaded and I tried to optimize my route a bit more. I also damaged the enemy tower really badly, so the enemy acolyte tries to repair it instead of the buildings that are actually important. And one by one, the buildings fell while the defenders were desperately trying to take me down. Once the citadel fell, there were only 2 more buildings left, and I had 2 little groups of ghouls remaining. Then 1 building was down and only 1 remained. And as you can see here, my ghouls were attacking the last building, with the other buildings almost finishing being rebuilt right next to them. And not only that, but I had no idea if I would be able to kill it. But with a lot of luck, my final couple of ghouls managed to take it down in the nick of time. This was one of my closest victories ever. And holy hell, if my first 2 levels look like this, I'm afraid to find out what kind of hell awaits me in this godforsaken challenge next.
So this is Normandy.
And just as I thought that it couldn't get any worse than this, it's time for some Naga. This really is the worst challenge run ever. This initial segment gave me 3 ghouls, but they weren't enough to destroy this whole base on their own, so I destroyed the base the good old-fashioned way. Next, I prepared my defenses and I started making a bunch of acolytes. 30 bunch of acolytes, to be exact. And these 30 guys are going to enact the Normandy beach landing in World War II. I put them into 3 boats and I sailed across the river and through a huge Naga base. 1 boat gave his life so the other 2 can move on. And then I unloaded my remaining 20 acolytes and I moved through a bunch of scorpions down south. Then we ran past 3 polar bears until we finally escaped south to the forest, which was under the protection of the dancing penguin king. Only 3 acolytes made it out alive. And here I had just enough space to make a town hall and put creep on the ground and then make a tower. And I used the town hall to make some more acolytes, and I used the tower to attack the polar bears. This was just an insanely slow process, but it worked. I took out the polar bears and I inched a bit closer to the scorpions, where I again placed the town hall. I cannot emphasize this enough though. This whole process is really slow. It is so slow that the enemy attack waves got too big for my base to handle. Thankfully, the fake town hall trick on the edge of the island works, and this is enough to distract every Naga attack wave. Unfortunately, the level also has an alliance base which attacks me with drops, and these I can't get rid of that easily. And to make things worse, there is a Dragonhawk Rider attack wave that comes late during the mission, and these guys straight up disable my towers, and I can't get rid of them. So if that wave attacks me, I'm dead. But there is also no way to speed up things on the Normandy front, So I'm gonna go ahead and say that it is physically impossible to do this one with only acolytes. These guys can't even take out the expansion in the north by themselves. So once again, I'm forced to employ ghouls as well. So I reloaded, but instead of building a town hall, I built a bunch of crypts in the south. Then I trained a bunch of ghouls, and I was able to sweep the polar bears and scorpions in my way. Next up was a spider wave, and these guys are moderately difficult to take down. I just had to focus their spider houses first, because they respawn units really quickly. Next was another spider city, which I took down, and now there was just one spider city remaining. And this one had a spider queen. So I made a few extra ghouls, and I took them down. I also made a town hall there, because the last area I needed to clear had dragons, and my ghouls unfortunately can't bite into the air. So I made a few towers there as well, and I started baiting the dragons. This process was slow because the camps in this game have a really weird AI behavior when you are kind of out of their range, so they don't really know what to do. But I took a couple of them down. Unfortunately, my main base was also taken down in the meantime, so I made a town hall behind me so it distracts potential attack waves coming my way. And it really worked. The attack wave changed its mind and went back. In the meantime, I used my ghouls to start baiting the Dragonkin defenders one by one. This ended up being a really effective strategy until I got to the level 15 Dragon Guardian in the end. This guy has a stomp attack which is really nasty combined with my ghouls that surrounded him. Thankfully, this guy went a bit too far out of his leash range and his AI started acting up again. He wanted to go away as soon as possible, but I used my ghouls to surround him and I put them in hold position while he was being pounded by my towers. Honestly, I deserved a lucky break after all this shit I've been through. Then there were only 2 more dragons remaining and I took them down with some baiting as well. And now it's time to kill some dreadlords.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
Where even to begin with this one? This level starts you off with a sneak attack where you have to bust one of the bases in 8 minutes. And they give you a hefty starting force for that. A starting force which I can't use.
I'm in danger!
And if I don't clear at least one of the bases, I will lose for sure because the attack waves they send here are insane. Thankfully, I had a plan. The Undead base here already has a blight ground, so all I had to do was walk past a bunch of sleeping defenders and make a bunch of towers. If I build them too close to the defenders though, they will wake up. So I put my towers into a corner here and I started baiting people into them. And that worked quite well. Then I put some more towers in the middle of the base so I can start sniping their production buildings. I even baited the enemy hero, who turned out to be a complete idiot. This level 10 guy was dead focused on my worker, but he ate too much and became a really chunky boy. So I managed to constantly bait him back and forth around the tower until he fell like a log. And this was my one and only victory that I was about to have. You see, my damage output isn't nearly enough to snipe the production buildings, because I lack the money to build a bunch of towers. So I can't snipe the production and the enemy will rebuild their buildings when the time runs out. So this is another level that is physically not possible to beat with only acolytes. So I had to call in the ghoul squad here as well. At this point I might as well allow them since this campaign is way too hard to beat with only acolytes. Plus, they have a pickaxe in their command card, so they definitely count as workers. Anyway, I again made a bunch of towers and I baited defenders into them, but this time I was able to take out the enemy buildings with my ghouls, so it was a lot easier now. I focused on the buildings that actually produce units on this level, which means the slaughterhouse and the altar get completely ignored. They are just decorations. And when I took down the buildings, I thought the hard part was done. Little did I know. You see, once the timer ends, the enemy bases launch a huge counterattack. I cleverly built a couple more towers so we can prepare for that attack. But then he came. Lord Garithos, the human leader. And anything that I prepared, he had an answer to. If I focus down one of his friends, he will heal them. If I focus him down with ghouls, he will use a devastating shockwave spell, which will crush my low health ghouls. And if I focus him with towers, he will turn into a giant with so much health that his escort will destroy me. This guy is a menace. So much so that I thought I was going to have to give up. Nothing I did seemed to work. No matter how strong my forces are, he will destroy them. And I was 3 hours into the run at that point. 3 hours of trying out strategies on how to survive the initial 10 minutes. But then a miracle happened. You see, when he destroys the towers, he is programmed to move to the nearest building. But on my 1000th attempt, he actually failed to do that. He just decided to stand there and do nothing. He's too old for this, it's time for him to retire. So my initial base actually had to deal with a normal attack wave. So I built a couple towers and I actually managed to survive. So I just have to deal with the regular humans now. But don't think that will be easy. The enemy still sends attack waves ranging from flyers to waves of siege engines. But once I acquired the northern expansion, I started feeling safe. Next, I took the 2 gold mines next to Garifos, and thankfully he didn't mind me being his neighbor. My next problem though were the attack waves, which come really often and hit really hard. But there is a solution to that. You know that fake town hall strategy which I love to use? Well, turns out that works with any building. So I built a ziggurat next to the enemy base, and this is enough of a distraction for them to just go away when they kill it. So for the nifty price of 150 gold and 50 wood, I was able to tell this whole huge attack wave to go away. Pretty neat, huh? And that gave me enough time to take out the whole northern human base. This one didn't have that many units, so it was easy to take out with my ghouls. There was this annoying helicopter following me around all the time, but this guy deals so little damage that it's really pathetic. The only thing this guy is good for is his voice acting.
They came from behind!
Then it was time for the main base. And boy oh boy was this something. They had so much stuff in there that I had 0 chances of taking them down. Even with an army of ghouls. But thankfully I had something on my side now. Money. I had 2 gold mines and a 3rd in the base I just killed. And this allowed me to pull off a sneaky. I took a couple of ghouls and I baited the whole army into the tower lane, and I used a bunch of ghouls from the back and I took out the enemy town hall and their workers. They can't rebuild anymore. I even took out their barracks. Then in my next incursion I destroyed the 2nd barracks, so they just had flyers now. But I think they ran out of money because they stopped making anything after that. But then something weird happened. You know, I said the undead slaughterhouses are there for show? Well, 30 minutes into the game, this one decided to make a single obsidian statue that is trying to tickle me to death. This game is so weird, man. Then I went into the human base and I destroyed the last couple of buildings. And this was it with the human bases. Now all I had to do was clean up the undead bases. But before that, it was time to pull Garifos out of retirement with one last duel. My 100 ghouls versus a force of nature. And he put up quite the fight, but I won. And that was it. One more level of suffering done, and 5 hours of my life that I'm never getting back. Okay, this is the last Dreadlord level. And this one lets me build human workers as well. You know, those guys who are actually decent at combat and who make strong towers really quickly. In theory, this mission was supposed to be the easiest one yet. Oh, but the Dreadlord here had something to say about that as well. You start this level with 2 bases, and the biggest problem with the Undead base is that it has really bad defenses, and the problem with the human base is that it has really bad attack capabilities. So I'm gonna do something to rectify that. I used the Scroll of Town portal to bring a couple of workers from the human base to the Undead base. And I used another scroll to bring a bunch of ghouls and an acolyte from the undead base to the human one. The human workers will now be able to build a bunch of base defenses in the undead base. And these defenses hit just as hard as ziggurats, but they have more health and use up less space, so I can fit more of them inside. On the other hand, I use the ghouls from the human base to push to the expansion defended by kobolds. I also use them to clear a couple of demons next to the human base. And then I use my acolyte to build a town hall, to put some blight there, and a couple of crypts on the blighted land, which I will use later. The human base had a bunch of towers surrounded by very hefty and sturdy buildings, so this one was pretty safe, just like my undead base. Next, I made a bunch of ghouls and assaulted the small orange base south of me, so that I can take its expansion since my gold mine was gone at that point. So far, so good. But then I took a look at what the enemies have remaining now, and I have to say it's a lot. Impossibly much, to be honest. Both the green and the orange bases have so much stuff that it would be impossible to take them out. Thankfully, I don't have to do that. I only have to take out the base in the middle. Unfortunately, that base has the most stuff out of all three bases, and it also has a demon portal in the middle, which summons very overpowered demons. So I didn't really harbor much hope at that point. But then I discovered something interesting. The middle base doesn't rebuild any of their buildings. They will repair them, but they won't rebuild anything. So maybe there was some hope after all. But it's not gonna be easy. My main concern here is the enemy Dreadlord, who is a freaking menace. He can casually summon 4 Infernals out of thin air. And if that wasn't enough, he also has the Earthquake ability. So every time he decides to use it, I have to focus him down before he kills all my stuff. Thankfully, the fake base trick works on this level as well, and it also works with the human buildings. So by placing a barracks on key locations on the enemy attack routes, I was able to deny their attack waves. Unfortunately, this was quite random and the green attack wave sometimes decided to ignore that. And this trick only partially works with the orange attack wave, because they are dead set on destroying my haunted gold mine, but usually that was enough for them to go back. But okay, I managed to protect myself and now it was time to go on the offense. I had a solid amount of cash for the humans, so I used my workers to build a bunch of towers next to the middle base. And I mean a bunch. Now my plan was to bait the defenders into the towers, and while they are dead and respawning, I was going to go into the base and destroy as much as I can. And this worked like a charm. I was able to destroy the demon gate in the middle, but also a boneyard. The problem is that the enemy has 2 of every production structure, so I will have to take out another one to get rid of their frost worms. In my next attack wave, I went after the necromancer building and the crypt. Thankfully, the Dreadlord forgot that his earthquake damages his own buildings as well, so he actually helped me when he used it. And that gave me enough time to take out the crypt as well. After that, I made another ghoul squad, and I took out the last necromancer building and the altar next to it, so no more necromancers. The problem now is that the last buildings are on the other side of the base, so I started using my pre-built crypts to train an attack wave from the human base. I used a couple of my ghouls from the top to bait the defenders, and while they were away, I took out the last boneyard as well as the slaughterhouse. So no more frost worms. My next attack wave took out the slaughterhouse and bye-bye abominations. But then something really bad happened, and it's called Death and Decay. The green attack wave found my human base, and the Lich used this to destroy all my towers, which were placed in one area. This is the downside of having a really compact defense, I guess. And naturally, my base fell after that. But the undead base was able to make another attack wave, which was barely able to take out the last altar and crypt. So that's all production structures down. Before that, I made a bunch of towers to take out the remaining base defenders, which didn't really want to leave the base for some reason. And now all I had to do was destroy the town hall. But that's easier said than done, because I was broke. So I desperately sold all my remaining buildings to make 2 more squads of ghouls. And thankfully that was enough. I cannot describe how difficult this level was without any of my normal units. And I cannot describe how horrible what is coming next is going to be. But before the finale, let's talk about the next couple of no-build missions. These missions do indeed feature a couple of ghouls, but they are sure as hell not enough to single-handedly beat those missions. So I'm sorry, but you won't be seeing 2 ghouls single-handedly take down the Forgotten One.
You royally screwed us all!
And yeah, turns out I saved the worst for last. And yes, things really can get worse than they already have. And if you know this mission, you probably know why. If not, then I'll give you a hint. They are big, green, mean, and are a menace to society. But first, let's start with the obvious. There are 3 huge enemy bases on this level, all of which launch attacks against me. A Blood Elf base and 2 Naga bases. Thankfully, the fake base trick works on this level, and it works really well. If I make a Necropolis on the path to my base, both the Blood Elf and 1 Naga player won't be able to attack me at all. 100% of the time, they will destroy it and go back. So that eases some of the pressure here. But the biggest problem here is Illidan and his shenanigans. The goal of the mission is to capture 4 obelisks before him. And once he captures an obelisk, he will reinforce it with a bunch, and I mean a bunch of units. So I had to make sure he never gets a single obelisk past the first one, which I can't stop. So after he took his first obelisk, I got to expand a bit and build a bunch of ghouls. The good thing about all of this is that Illidan is completely frozen for 30 seconds when channeling. So once he starts channeling, I was able to focus him down and then his escort as well. Fun fact, ghouls deal normal damage, which doesn't get reduced by Illidan's hero armor. So I actually deal a solid amount of damage to him with my workers. That's the only good thing about them. Next, I took out the little base next to the obelisk and I started taking gold from there. In the meantime, I used Arthas to capture that obelisk and I made some ghouls in the back of this. Illidan came to capture the western obelisk next, but obelisks are guarded by a bunch of revenants, so they soften his troops up before he starts channeling. So once he does try to take it, he is pretty weak and I was able to take him out again, as well as his escort. His escort gets stronger with each attempt though, so I won't be able to use this again. In the meantime, I snuck Arthas to the south obelisk and I captured it. And I also got another gold mine, so I'm at number 4 now. But then the one on the right was taken out by Illidan and his escort. His escort is pretty huge now, so I can't really do much against it with an army of ghouls. Thankfully, in another reforged moment, Illidan started capturing the obelisk, while his escort went far away from him for some reason, which gave me enough time to sneak my ghouls and take him out. The rest of his escort went after my main base, but I had a decent number of towers and ghouls, so I defended myself. Next, I took the third obelisk, and it was time for the final push. Notice how I want to win the mission as soon as possible, despite the fact that there are a bunch of expansions on this map. As I said, Illidan's escort gets stronger, and I won't be able to stop him at all if he decides to capture the next obelisk. So this was it. One final push for the last obelisk. And this one is defended by 3 Naga Royal Guards, and a bunch of defenders on top of that. But I had like 100 supplying ghouls here, so how bad can it be? Turns out, very. I lost everyone, did almost nothing, and the 2 royal guards next to the obelisk didn't even have to join the battle. That's how weak my ghouls are. These guys are so broken, I swear it's insane. But okay, I don't have to kill them, I just have to capture the obelisk. So I rushed Arthas in, and yeah, this happened. Once I start capturing the obelisk, the enemy will drop everything they are doing to try to stop me. So this doesn't work either. And to make things even worse, Illidan responds really quickly. So if I take too long in that fight, he will capture one of my obelisks, and I'm dead. So yeah, this level is actually impossible to beat with only workers. But then again, it would be either way since I have to use Arthas to capture the obelisks. So I decided that using Arthas' items would be okay. And he happens to have a bunch of goblin landmines on him, which he got from the first level. So I used those mines to take out a bunch of defenders. I am not a fan of this, but I'm fighting 3 royal guards and 100 supplying troops with 40 ghouls. So this would be absolutely impossible without the mines. Then I cleaned everything up with my ghouls and I stepped on the circle. Illidan wasn't far behind on his circle, but I was a bit faster and I won. And this is where the challenge run should have ended. And it was going to. I was literally editing this video and I was almost done with everything. But I just couldn't let this last bit go. It just didn't sit right with me. So I went back and I redid the last portion of the level. I had this giant ball of ghouls, so I decided to tell them all to attack Illidan instead of the obelisk. And I managed to do it with huge losses. And this gave me some time to set up another gold mine in the west. Not much time though, because Illidan came back pretty quickly, so I had to make another ghoul squad to stop him. And while I was trying to kill him with the ghouls, I noticed something interesting. I usually have a shade following him around to see where he is going next. And I could see the shade was blocking him from reaching the center of the circle, so he stood a bit to the side. Then I noticed that shades suddenly use up physical space, which is something that was patched out ages ago. The way it usually works is that the shade can't move through units, but other units can freely move through shades, as you can see here. And I have no idea why my shade suddenly decided to revert a few patches back, but I think I actually stand a chance now. I'm okay with using shades, by the way, because they are an evolved version of the Acolyte, so it's basically the same thing as with peasants and the militia. So I made a bunch of shades and I went for Illidan in the south, where I surrounded him with a bunch of shades next to a gold mine. And now he was blocked by invisible ghosts. This means that he won't spawn any attack waves anymore, which in turn means that I will never be attacked anymore since both the Alliance and Naga bases are taken care of with fake bases. So now that I had time, I started mining gold from the 2 gold mines in the west.
2 hours later.
And when I was done, it was time to crush the last obelisk. My plan was to continuously attack the obelisk until the enemy falls to my infinite numbers. Yeah, turns out that isn't gonna work. The enemy still has insane units and I still have just an army of ghouls, even if it's a large one. So I had to be tactical. I used a bunch of ghouls to snipe the 3 enemy workers in that base, and then I made a bunch of ghouls and I sniped the 2 enemy spawning grounds, which are buildings which produce their most annoying units. And then I realized that Illidan's attack wave actually moved here for some reason, so there is so much more stuff here than usual, it's insane. Thankfully, it was possible to bait individual units belonging to the defenders using my ghouls, so I managed to take them out bit by focusing on the units from the spawning grounds, which are permanent kills. But I still lose a bunch of guys when I try to attack them because they are still broken. Soon I destroyed the Siren building, so every Siren kill is permanent too. But my money was slowly running out. Turns out not even 20,000 gold was enough to bust this obelisk. So I made a group of ghouls and I started baiting the Illidan attack wave away from the obelisk, while my other group of ghouls came in to destroy the remaining towers. Then Arthas, stripped of all his items, came and stepped on the circle. My baiting ghouls were killed, so the attack wave returned, but I managed to hold them off with my ghoul squad. And that was it. For real this time. No mines needed. This level was insane, just like those freaking shades. An interesting thing to note is that I did a test where I restarted the level and I made a bunch of shades, as you can see here, and they are still blocking the way. But once I restarted the game, they started behaving normally again. This game is so weird, oh my god. But I deserved a lucky break, because this was the hardest workers only challenge I've ever had to do. I dare even say by a large margin. The levels send so much stuff at you, and they rely so much on you using heroes, that this challenge feels insane. But I managed to do it. Turns out the whole campaign was actually possible to beat with workers only. Actually, every single build mission in Warcraft 3 was beatable with only workers. The working class has shown that it doesn't need any heroes or army to beat the game. Now, you might be asking yourself, what comes next? Well, I will do another Warcraft 3 challenge run, which will require all the knowledge that I have acquired from both the Deathless, the No Production, and the Workers Only run. Yes, it's going to be that difficult. But until then, thank you for watching. Smash that like button and subscribe if you want to see more of my content. I really appreciate it. And until next time, Amon signing off.